Good morning Year 7 and welcome to today's maths lesson. Here's today's starter. Can you add together 254.9 plus 67.2? Can you work out 3/4 multiplied by 7? Can you then work out 3/4 multiplied by 1/7? And then can you do 3/4 divided by 7? Pause the video and answer those questions in your light blue books now. Right, let's go through the answers. For the first one, I need to make sure I line up all my place value columns. So I've got 254.9 plus 67.2. 9 plus 2 gives me 11. 4 plus 7 gives me 11 plus 1 gives me 12. 5 plus 6 gives me 11 plus 1 gives me 12. And 2 plus 1 gives me 3. So the correct answer was 322.1. For the second question, I asked you to work out 3/4 multiplied by 7. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to write 7 as 7/1. 3 times 7 gives me what on the top, Ellen? 21, lovely. And 4 times 1 gives me what on the bottom, Ione? 4, great. You might have written that as a mixed number. That would give you 5 and 1/4. Either answer would be correct. For the next one, I've got 3/4 multiplied by 1/7. Multiplying across the top, 3 times 1 gives me 3. Multiplying across the bottom, 4 times 7 gives me what, Macy Jane? 28, lovely. And for the last one, we need to use our keep, flip, change. The first thing I'm going to do, whenever I see a whole number, I write it as 7/1. I want to keep my first fraction, which is 3/4. Flip my second fraction, which will become 1/7. And change the sign from a divide to a multiply. I've now got 3 times 1 on the top, which gives me 3. 4 times 7 on the bottom gives me 28. You might have noticed that 3/4 multiplied by a 7th is the same as 3/4 divided by 7. Well done if you spotted that. Okay, Year 7, here's today's lesson destination. We're going to be looking at improper fractions again, and then division of more fractions. So a quick recap. Last lesson we were looking at modelling fractions, and I said if we model a half, we have a whole bar, we split it into 2, and we shade in one of those parts. To model a quarter, we split it into 4, and we shade in one of those parts. We then wanted to ask the question, how many quarters are there within one half? And that's the same as asking, can we model 1/2 divided by a quarter? When we put the bars together, we found out that there were 2 lots of a quarter within a half, so 1/2 divided by a quarter is just 2. Over to you, Year 7. In your light blue books, can you model 1/2, model a third, and then can you answer my question, how many thirds are there in a half? Or what is a half divided by a third? Pause the video and have a go at that in your light blue books now, please. So hopefully your bar model is going to look a little something like this. And we can't use this to directly tell how many thirds there are in a half. We know there's 1 and a bit, but it's hard to tell exactly what that might be. So we're going to investigate a new method. When I say new method, it's similar to a method we've already used. So in your dark blue books, can you write the title Dividing Fractions by Fractions? And if you'd like to, underneath, feel free to copy out the keep, flip, change protocol that we covered in a previous lesson. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, and change the sign in the middle. When you've got that written down, can I see pens down, eyes on me? I'll go through an example and then you've got a similar example to write in your dark blue books. So here's my example. I want to do a fifth divided by a third, and I can't model that using the bar model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my first fraction as a fifth. I'm going to flip my second fraction so the 3 ends up on the top and the 1 ends up on the bottom. And then I'm going to change the sign to a multiply. Now we know when we multiply fractions, we multiply the numerators together and the denominators together. So 1 times 3 gives me what, Dan? 3 on the top, brilliant. 5 times 1 gives me what, Felix? 5 on the bottom. So 1/5 divided by a third is 3/5. Over to you, Year 7, in your dark blue books. Pause the video for a minute and work out this one for me. Let's go through it to check you've got it right. This time I keep my first fraction, which is a third. I flip my second fraction to become 5/1, and I change the sign to a multiply. I've now got 1 times 5 on the top, which is 5, 3 times 1 on the bottom, which gives me 3. Ione, did you write that as a mixed number? Exactly, as a mixed number we'd get 1 and 2/3. Either answer would be correct, I didn't specify. Okay, Year 7, mini whiteboards or light blue books. Can you work out 1/5 divided by 3 for me? Remember, what do we do every time we see a whole number? Pause the video and work that out now. Right, let's go through it. Every time we see a whole number, we want to write it as 3/1. So now I keep my first fraction. I flip my second fraction to become 1/3. I change the sign in the middle to a multiply. I've got 1 times 1 on the top, which gives me 1, and 5 times 3 on the bottom, which gives me 15. How good are you, Year 7? Pause the video and answer this one in your light blue books. Right, let's go through it. This time we keep our first fraction, it's a fifth. We flip our second fraction, so the 3's on the top now. And we change the sign to a multiply. I've now got 1 times 3, which is 3 on the top, and 5 times 1, which is 5 on the bottom. So how about now? Pause the video and answer this one in your light blue books. Right, let's go through it. I keep my first fraction, it's a quarter. I flip my second fraction, so that becomes 3/1, and I multiply across the middle. 1 times 3 gives me 3 on the top, 4 times 1 gives me 4 on the bottom. Okay, Year 7? How about now? Pause the video, answer this one in your light blue books. Right, let's go through it. This time, I've got a quarter as my first fraction, which I keep. My 2/3 becomes the 3 goes on the top and the 2 goes on the bottom. I change my divide to a multiply, which gives me 1 times 3, which is 3 on the top, and 4 times 2, which is 8 on the bottom. So how about now? Pause the video, have a little think. Let's go through it. The 3/4 stays as it is, we keep it. We flip the second fraction, so we've got 3/2. We change the sign to a multiply. I've now got 3 times 3, which gives me 9 on the top, 4 times 2, which gives me 8 on the bottom. I can write that as a mixed number if I liked, 1 1/8. One more for you. How about now? Right, let's go through it. We've got 3/4. We flip our second fraction over. We change our sign to a multiply. I've now got 3 times 2 on the top, Zara, which gives me, thanks Zara, 12. 4 times 2 gives me what on the bottom, Katie? 8, brilliant. I can now simplify by dividing top and bottom by 4. If I do that, I get 3/2, which I could write as a mixed number, couldn't I, Ione? How would I write that as a mixed number, Ione? 1.5. Very wise. Okay, Year 7, can you pause the video for 10 to 15 minutes? Don't worry if you don't make it all the way through, okay? Just spend 10 to 15 minutes on as many of these fractions as you can. The answer will be somewhere in the grid. When you find it, cross it off. At the end, you'll have 5 fractions left over. Add together these fractions. I suggest you use a calculator for this. And what do you get as your final total? Pause the video for 10 to 15 minutes, have a go at those questions for me. Don't worry if you don't finish. And these are the answers I was looking for. Please check your work and see how you did, Year 7. Okay, a quick recap of how we converted between improper fractions and mixed numbers. I've got the number 2 and 4/5, and I want to convert that to an improper fraction. Now I know that within each one whole, I've got 5 lots of a fifth. If I drew that as a bar, one whole would be split into 5 lots of a fifth. Each of these is worth a fifth. So if I've got 2 wholes, I know I've got 10 lots of a fifth, because I've got another one and another 5 lots of a fifth. So altogether, I've got 10 lots of a fifth within that 2 and an extra 4. So altogether, I've got 14/5. I could also work this out by doing 2 times 5 and adding on the 4. 2 times 5 would give me 10 plus the 4, which would give me 14/5. Okay, Year 7, mini whiteboards or light blue books. Show me this one as an improper fraction. Okay, let's work it out. 1 times 3 gives me 3, plus 2 gives me 5. So I was looking for 5/3. How about now? This time I've got 2 times 3 gives me 6, plus 2 gives me 8. So I've got 8/3. How about now, Year 7? Okay, this time we're looking at 1 times 5 plus 3 will give me 8/5. How about now? Lily, help me out. How am I going to do this one? 6 times 5 gives me 30 plus 3 gives me 33/5. Thanks, Lily. And finally, how about this one? 3 times 7 gives me 21, plus 3 gives me 24/7. Okay, Year 7, please pause the video for 5 minutes and have a go at these questions. At least try and get through the first 5 on the left-hand side. Don't worry about the other ones, they're more of an extension. Pause the video, 5-10 minutes, complete these in your light blue books now. And these are the answers I was looking for. Please check your work and see how you did. So why have we been practicing this? Well, I want us to be able to do division of fractions when I get a mixed number in there. This looks really tricky as it is. However, I know I can convert this into an improper fraction. So in your dark blue books, watch me while I go through this example, and then you're going to complete a similar example in your books. So I've got a mixed number and a fraction. That looks really nasty. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert this mixed number into an improper fraction. And we know how to do this now because we've done lots of practice. So 2 times 3 will give me 6, plus 2 gives me 8. So I've got 8/3 divided by a fifth. This looks much nicer. Now I can apply my keep, flip, change. I keep my first fraction, I flip my second fraction over, so that becomes 5 over 1, and I change my sign to a multiply. I can then multiply my numerators together. 8 times 5 gives me 40, and my denominators together. 3 times 1 gives me 3. I can either write that as an improper fraction, or if I was so inclined, I could write that as a mixed number. That would give me 13 and a third. Either answer would be correct. Over to you, Year 7. In your dark blue books, here's one for you. Pause the video for a couple of minutes and work that out now, please. Right, let's go through the answer. So 2 2/3 we know we can write as 8 over 3. There it is. Keeping the first fraction, we want to flip the second fraction. So the second fraction becomes 5 over 2. We then want to change our sign to a multiply. So I've got 8 times 5, which gives me 40. 3 times 2 gives me 6 on the bottom. I can simplify that by dividing top and bottom by 2, which will give me 20 over 3. And then up to you, you can leave it as an improper fraction, or I could convert that to a mixed number. That would give me 6 and 2/3. Please make sure you've got this example written in your dark blue books. And in your light blue books, please pause the video for 10 minutes and have a go at as many of these questions as you can. Please focus on A, B, C, D and E if that's where you're comfortable and you're not ready to move on to the mixed numbers. If you're feeling confident, feel free to start on F and go from there. Also feel free to have a go at them all. Pause the video for 10 to 15 minutes and complete those questions now. And these are the answers I was looking for. Please check your work and see how you did. And this was today's lesson destination. Pause the video for a couple of minutes and work these out in your light blue books now. And these are the answers I was looking for. I converted my 1 1/4 into an improper fraction before doing the division. And that's the end of today's lesson. Thanks very much for listening, Year 7. Please now head over to Google Classroom and submit today's exit ticket. Always a pleasure. Have a wonderful afternoon. Goodbye.